Hi, everybody, and welcome to our talk today. Today, I'm here with Meredith Hornberger, who is an amazing licensed massage therapist here in Prescott, Arizona. We've been working together for a while, and she is always super busy. So her clients are all really lucky to be able to get to work with her. And the reason that I wanted to sit down with you today, Meredith, and have you share this story was that a few weeks ago at work, you told me this story of some experiences that you had recently had. And you know that I talk a lot about the idea of self-worth in medicine and in what I do, and the idea that until we have a strong relationship with our sense of self-worth as women, it's really hard for us to make the lifestyle changes and stick with them in order to reach our health goals. And the story that you shared with me was so amazing that I thought it was such a beautiful example of how a woman can really value herself and put herself first. And it doesn't have to be, it's a personal experience, and it's a personal choice, and it's a personal journey. And so I'm so happy to have you here and to hear this story again, because I think it's really pretty amazing. So I'll turn it
Thank
over
you.
to you. Yeah.
Um, so during the pandemic last year, I think a lot of us who were not able to work or whose lifestyles changed so drastically really had time to kind of sit and think about some things. I know for me, I was off work for 7 weeks and I'm always busy. I don't really take time off that much, as you know. So to have these 7 weeks to just kind of do nothing. A lot of stuff changed and shifted for me, actually. And the funniest thing was I had this aha moment one day. I was in the shower and I was getting ready to shave my legs, and I had this thought of like, why am I doing this? It hurts. Like it physically literally hurts my body, and I don't like it. So this thought process kind of shifted to and bled over into other areas of my life, where I stopped and asked myself, why do I do the things that I do? And do I want to continue doing them? And because if it hurts, I tell my clients this all the time, if it hurts, don't do it. So I needed to kind of take some of my own advice. But so I started with the question of why. Why do I do this? I don't enjoy shaving my legs. It hurts. They bleed. It's awful. It's weird. And so I was able to trace it back to some very specific moments in my life, memories, all the way back from very young childhood, where these moments came out of shame, out of being shamed for my body, being in its natural state, being a child and starting to grow body hair. And even after being an adult and having a partner and being married, I was still being shamed for my body. And these things became kind of belief systems of, if I don't do this, then I am this way. So if I don't shave, I am perceived as disgusting. So that was one of them. So I started rethinking, is this shameful? I don't think it is. Like, it doesn't bother me when other people don't shave. I cannot tell you how many times, particularly female clients will be on my table and I will undrape their leg and go to work on their leg. And they say, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't shave. And I started replying, that's okay, neither did I. And it lightened the mood and it became kind of a joke, but it was very apparent that women were constantly apologizing for the condition of their bodies. And on the flip side, men typically don't. And I find that really interesting. Some men do, and some men experience these levels of shame as well. But by and large, it's women who I found were constantly apologizing for the state of their body hair, their feet, if they didn't have pedicures, things like that. And so I really wanted to share this story because I want to empower women and men too, that struggle with these issues as well, because it is universal, to just love yourself, just accept yourself. And the other areas that this trickled over in became personal and professional, where I had opportunities to learn to self-advocate, I got to sit with the difference between being assertive versus aggressive and what that means to me, because I'm not an aggressive person. And I always associated being assertive with kind of being perceived as aggressive. And so I had this really beautiful conversation with somebody at work over making some big changes with regards to where I was working and how I was working. I needed things to be different for being able to show up in my life for my daughter. And so I sat, and he's a lovely person and I absolutely adore him. And I sat down with our office manager and I said, I really need you to hear me. And he said, okay. And I said, if my life were a book, this chapter of my life would be entitled How Growing Out My Body Hair Helped Me Grow a Backbone. And his mouth fell open and he said, I'm sorry, what? I said, hear me out. And so I shared that whole story with him about, being shamed as a child and how that became a belief system and all of that, and how I felt as an adult and how it affected me in so many areas of my life. And it was the most amazing experience, Emily, because he heard me. He heard me, he saw me, he listened to me, he felt it. And I had this just mind-blowing moment of, it's okay to just be me. It's okay to ask for the things that I need to ask for. I might not always get them, but it doesn't hurt to ask and to explain and to be firm but kind and to balance my compassion and empathy for other people and how I show up for them with the compassion and empathy that I deserve and showing up for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So so that was the gist of it.
I love this story so much. I'm taking notes because you've said so many amazing things. But I absolutely love this story because there's so much there, Meredith. And thank you so much for sharing it again with me. Because there's just, I feel like as women, we can hear this message over and over and over again. And there were quite a few things that you said that really stood out to me. And, one of them was the idea of, as girls, we are shamed for our bodies in a lot of ways from the time we're very, very young, and we're shamed for our behaviors and actions when they don't, fall in line with what parents or society thinks we should be, behaving like. So I think that's huge. And the way that can keep us feeling, small and apologetic for ourselves. You mentioned that a number of your female clients, and I have done this as well, apologized if I hadn't shaved my legs, or, as if as women, we are supposed to all, get pedicures every couple of weeks and shave our legs every single day. And I'll tell you right now, that for me is so time consuming. It's not only painful and uncomfortable, but it can be time consuming and expensive too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so there are a lot of, I just feel like you must have opened up such a big door inside of your own mind and created so much mental and emotional space by giving up something that just wasn't really working for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I noticed, there was physical changes too, that my body, my skin actually healed. My legs felt amazing. Armpit hair serves a purpose. Like, I realized that I wasn't sweating as much. And I was like, wow, like, this is just like, why do we do these things? And so it's interesting to go back to and look at the history of why women started shaving, but that's another story. But if you're interested, go look at it. It's fascinating. But I also have to say too, that I have a daughter. I have a teenage daughter. She just turned 15. And so as I was going through this process last year, I shared this with her. And I wanted to explain to her, like, this is what I'm doing and this is why I'm doing it. And I asked her, like, how do you feel about it? And she's like, I don't like it, but you do you. And I was like, exactly. And then, so I also really want to reiterate here, like, this is not a women shouldn't shave rant at all. This is we should all sit and think about why we do the things that we do, and do we want to continue doing them if they're not working for us, or if they're for the comfort, pleasure, and preference of somebody else at the detriment to ourselves. Like, that's the message that I took away from this whole thing. And this whole experiment, it lasted just over a year. And it was interesting when uh, last year, so I was off for 7 weeks, and that's when it started. But then when I started going back to work, and then I started going out in public, and we went kayaking, and I was wearing shorts outside, and I was like, I looked at my daughter one day. We had gone for a walk through Sedona, and I'm wearing shorts and a tank top. And I have to admit, I was a little like, that stigma is always
Yeah.
front and center to me and really hard to work through. And these two men walked past us. We were right in Sedona going to get ice cream. And I said to her, I was like, oh my gosh, did you see them pointing and laughing at me? And she's like, no. And I was like, see, exactly. It literally doesn't affect anybody else. It's nobody else's business what condition of my body is. It doesn't affect them. And so that's been really a beautiful gift to give her as well. And what she does with that is up to her completely, and same thing with anybody else hearing this story. It's not about shaving, it's about the mentality of it. This year I finally was like, I was sitting, I was looking at my legs one day, and I was like, thank you. I think I'm good. Like, I feel complete with this experiment. And so I am back to shaving, but I do it differently now. I do it because I want to, if I want to, when I feel like it, and it still doesn't affect anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so amazing. And I think beginning, for me, I'm all about the process of self-exploration, right? Because the more we know about ourselves, the more we are empowered to make changes if we want to make changes, right? In order to live a life that's more authentically our own. And so to begin anything with the question of why do I do this? How is it serving me? Is really important. And I think one of the things that you touched on that is so important here is, why is this important to me? Is it important to me because it serves me? Or is it important to me because it's ultimately something I do for somebody else? And it's, maybe to make them happy or to keep them in my life, or, it doesn't even have to be that intense or profound, but there are a lot of things as women, I think we believe that we have to do for other people. And, outside of raising children, of course, which is, for moms, like, you have to take care of your kids, you have to be there, until they're old enough to be on their own. But outside of that, and some people might have, family members who depend on them for health reasons or whatnot. But outside of that, I think that there are a lot of things that women do that if we took a good look at it, we would realize that we're actually probably doing this for someone else. Right. And so this is the whole idea of self-worth that I talk about, which is, how do we, once we have that knowledge, that awareness, we get to decide what we want to do with it. If we decide that this behavior does actually serve us, then there's no problem there. Just like with you, when you went through this, year-long plus experiment and experience with not shaving and how that changed your relationship with yourself. We have the power to do that too, right? And then once we realize what we're doing that works for us, that's when the things start to change. That's when things can really start to change. And especially with our relationship with our health, right? Because then it has drinking the water and eating the vegetables and going for the walks or getting the exercise. They all take on a totally different meaning. And that's when our bodies really start to shift, which is so
Absolutely. And there's a difference between guilt and shame too. Like, guilt is when we feel bad for something that we did, like actually hurting somebody else. Shame is more the perception of what other people think about us and feeling bad about how we're being perceived. So when we do things out of guilt, that doesn't serve any good purpose. When we do things out of shame, that doesn't serve any good purpose. When we're doing things for other people, but we don't feel good about it, is it worth doing? And so taking the shame out of the equation, taking the guilt off the table, and then showing up with how we want to show up and feeling so much better about it, it really benefits everybody. So I'm a very giving person, a very loving person. But when I do things to the point where I am empty and I have nothing left to give, it's not good. It's not beneficial. And this is something I really believe firmly in, with regards to work as well, because what I do in doing massage and body work for other people, it is about giving. It is about showing up for other people. And when it gets to the point where I'm feeling burned out and feeling like my cup is so empty, I will call off work, because if I can't show up for this person who's showing up to see me, if I can't show up for them at 100%, I don't want to do it, because they deserve better. And I've explained that to my clients before, and we've had some really amazing conversations too about that. And they said, well, I would rather have you call off and reschedule and show up at 100% than, than take from something that's not really even there anymore. So that's been really empowering too. And it's been mind-blowing to just open this whole thought process up and let it trickle out and flow into all these other areas of my life, and just be more open to it, and having such amazing conversations. I've had this conversation about the leg shaving with both men and women, and the feedback has been incredible. There's been some that have kind of laughed at it, kind of not knowing what to think about it. But when they stop and really sit with it a little bit, they're like, yeah, that actually kind of makes sense. And it's, yeah, why do we care so much about other people's legs and armpits? Like, I don't know.
Totally. Oh my God. I love that so much. And it's just such a beautiful example. And I love how it was this one choice you made, right? And you made it for you, and it affected so many different parts of your life. You talked a little bit earlier too about the idea of assertiveness versus aggressiveness. And it made me think about this in a class that I just finished up. We talked about the divine masculine and feminine versus the fractured masculine and feminine. And so there's this idea, the idea of assertiveness and aggressiveness is related. It would be considered more of a masculine quality, but while being able to be assertive and stand up for ourselves is something that we would relate that to the divine masculine. Being aggressive and trying to take control of a situation or have control over someone or manipulate, that is a fractured masculine quality. And so that's, a sign that ultimately the person has some healing to do somewhere inside of that. And so I just love that distinction and how this one experience just changed so much of your life.
Yeah. And I'll touch in on that too, like how I felt as a woman with all of this body hair and being in my completely natural state. I have never felt so feminine in my life.
Oh my God, tell me more. I love that.
It had to do with confidence more than anything, to just say, I am in charge of my body. I am in control of myself, and I don't have to give it away. I don't have to share it if I don't want to. It was incredibly empowering to just have this air of being myself and just not caring so much about what other people thought. And I had a moment where after quarantine, and I went to get a massage from a male massage therapist who I had seen previously. And I remember laying on the table and being that client who's like, oh gosh, like, is he going to say anything? Is he going to say anything? What's going to happen? And so he worked my back, and that was great. And then he got to my leg and he undraped my leg, and I literally held my breath and was like, as in like, wait for it. And he said nothing. He said nothing.
Amazing.
And it was so beautiful because it didn't matter. It didn't affect what he was doing. As body workers, like, we know it doesn't matter the condition of somebody's legs or arms or whatever. Like, most of us, we really don't care. But still, as a woman, I had that thought process of like, oh, here we go. And so to be seen and just it being normal, I think was so beautiful and such a gift. And I had this conversation with this therapist, and I thanked him for just like being cool about it. And like, he's like, oh, I didn't even really notice. It's like, it's just so great.
So awesome. God, I love this story. Thank you so much for spending some time and sharing it today.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this has been great. And again, I think that anytime as women, we can just touch base with ourselves and ask these questions, you know, the question of why is so powerful because it has the potential to change our lives. And for you, it really, really did when you were living through this experience. So that's awesome. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with us about your experience?
I think the takeaway here is really, again, that it's not about the shaving. It's about asking, why do I do the things that I do? And do I want to continue doing them? And that our self-worth is not based on our relation to others. As a woman in the past, I have felt simultaneously that I am both too much and yet not enough. And that's been really, really damaging. And so you are enough. I am enough. And we are not too much in just being ourselves. And we don't have to be filling a certain role to have that self-worth. We don't have to, we just don't have to. We can let all that stuff go. And if it comes from a place of shame, it doesn't need to be there. Let it go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I talk about the guilt and shame spiral that I went through when I was trying to make some lifestyle changes and they just weren't sticking, right? And how guilty I would feel, how shameful I would feel, because here I was a naturopathic doctor and like I couldn't even follow through on the prescriptions that I was giving to other people. And that's such an energy sucker. Guilt and shame, they have no place in healing because all they're going to do is rob us of our ability to heal, our vital energy. And so I think that's a really important point too. Meredith, you are amazing. Thank you so much. Well, I try. You are nailing it. Where can people find you? Because I'm sure people are going to want to contact you. Again, you're a massage therapist here in Prescott.
I am. So I do work at an office, and that office is so insanely busy that people can't really get in. So that's full. But I do have a mobile private practice that I do right now. So calling and texting is perfect. And I do have some exciting news that I am going to school in September to become a licensed esthetician on top of my massage therapy practice. So I want to be able to combine that. And what's funny about that story too is that I never would have thought before going to massage school that I would want to go into aesthetics, because I'm not one who wears a lot of makeup. I've never gotten waxed. I didn't even start getting facials until about a year and a half ago. And what I learned in that is the reason I was going was for self-care, because I don't take care of myself. So I have to actually let somebody else take care of me. And so I started getting facials and things. And then I started thinking like, I could do this. And what I want to do is kind of bridge the gap between what aesthetics actually is and people like me, where I come from, where I didn't think I fit in that world because those things were never super important to me. But it's not about how we look. It's about how we feel and about taking care of our skin. And so I kind of want to bridge that gap for some people who might not think that world is for them, but it is, because we can be in whatever world we want to be in.
Awesome. It all goes back to the idea of self-worth and valuing ourselves as people and not just as what society tells us we should be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So my schedule is going to get really busy. I am hoping at some point to get my own office, to move my private practice, my mobile practice into, because lugging my table around all the time is getting to be a bit exhausting. So yeah, I am on the hunt for an office in Prescott, and hopefully can grow my practice and blend and merge with the new field of aesthetics, and just kind of see what happens. I'm ready to just spread my wings and see where it takes me, because the wind is there. I just gotta set my altitude.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Ah, I love it so much. Well, I'm
Yeah.
so excited for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm excited to hear what happens as your aesthetics piece grows and takes on its own life. Perfect. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Do you want to post my phone number in the comments, or do you want me to just say it?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and say it, and then we'll include it in the video as well.
Sounds good. So it's 928-533-4250. And yeah, just reach out to me. If I can get people in, I will. So yeah.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Meredith. This has been
You're
amazing.
welcome. Okay, take care.
You too. Have a great day, okay?
Bye.
Bye.